The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now called to order. On March 6th, the Audit and Finance Committee met in executive session. Earlier today, the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public session. The Committee on Finance met in public and executive session. Their reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The Commissioners also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals, matters related to personnel or personnel procedures, and matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property where disclosure would affect the value thereof or the public interest. At this time, I'd like to ask for the Executive Director, Rick Cotton, to deliver his monthly report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin my report today by taking note of a very important personnel announcement that we made yesterday. We announced that the agency was promoting the current Deputy Director, Clarelle DeGraff, from Deputy Director of PATH to become the Director of PATH, which will take effect on Monday. I want to say that we have enormous confidence in her. She has been 29 years at the Port Authority in a wide variety of roles, all of which she has discharged with great distinction. She has been at PATH for the last 4 years, and as we looked at all the potential candidates, there simply was no one better equipped to take this position as Clarelle, and I would like to ask her to stand. I personally look forward to working very closely with her as we move PATH up the curve. I also want to take note that as Clarelle takes the reins, it means that Mike Marino, who announced his intention to retire back in the fall, we actually asked him to extend a couple of times to finish off the bedding in of the PTC signal system, a major accomplishment of PATH, one of the very few railroads in the country that met the federal deadline of the end of 2018 on that front. We will be asking Mike to come back at the next board meeting to receive our gratitude and to take note of his many contributions to PATH. Turning to the last month, Mr. Chairman, the run of record-breaking operational volumes that we saw in 2018 has continued into 2019, a very strong start to the year. Our precise data is collected over 45 days following the close of the month. So let me just highlight that in aviation, both JFK, Newark, LaGuardia, and New York Stewart all continue to show strong growth in the month of January. Kennedy, Newark, and LaGuardia individually, as well as the airport system as a whole, handled more passengers in January 2019 than any other January on record. This resulted in an all-time January high of more than 10 million passengers across all the airports, up 5.6% from last year, a particularly noteworthy increase. The Port Department's streak of record-setting months also continued into the new year. In January, the Port handled a monthly record of 622,000 TEUs, which represents a 6.3% increase over January 2018. The Port also set a new January record for cargo handled by rail. This is the 11th consecutive month of rail volume above 50,000 containers. At the Goethals Bridge, after opening its second span this summer, the bridge set a new February record for vehicular traffic. The Goethals handled more than 1.2 million eastbound vehicles, an 8.7% increase over the previous record February. These record volumes are a key element of our operational excellence priority. Turning to our capital plan priority, you have heard the report from Derek Utter on the improvement in 2018 in the agency's delivery of capital plan projects. I just want to offer a few comments of my own. You heard Derek report that in 2018, even with a significantly higher level of $2.9 billion in capital construction spending, the line division's implementation of planned capital spending actually rose from 88% of plan in 2017 to a full 100% of the planned spend. And the line divisions, as he reported, also improved their on-schedule performance. I just want to note that the management challenge here, given the size of the Port Authority's capital program, is like changing the course of a supertanker. And Derek Utter and Jim Sterace and their colleagues deserve enormous compliments and praise for performance, which really begins to change the direction. The degree of improvement in the first year of their initiative is extraordinarily encouraging given the scale at which the Port Authority operates. The 2018 improvement gives me confidence that the strategies being implemented will produce further positive effects, and I want the board to know that everyone is committed to achieving this continuing improvement. And while we're talking about Port Authority processes, I want the board to know we are also focused on improving several other behind-the-scenes processes at the Port Authority that have historically imposed unacceptable burdens and delays on Port Authority partners. I would note for the board initiatives in 4 specific areas. Those 4 areas are our security badging at the airports. That affects the more than 40,000 employees of multiple employers who work behind security at our airports. Our leasing processes, which are process which the Port Authority, in which the Port Authority leases space to third parties, which have historically simply taken too long. Our tenant construction and alteration process, which enables Port Authority tenants to receive necessary approvals to build out their lease space. And finally, our process for hiring to fill vacant positions. We are committed to taking strong action to implement steps that reduce the time and the burden that these problem areas impose on our partners. One other aspect that I want to comment on with respect to our capital plan, and in particular on our 4 major reconstruction projects, LaGuardia, Newark, Kennedy, and the bus terminal. We continue to be completely committed to extensive community involvement and input as these projects progress. We must ensure, and we will ensure, that the work we are doing surrounding JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, and the bus terminal translate to real opportunities for local residents and businesses, including MWBE contractors. We are opening and staffing new outreach offices in each of these communities, and last week we specifically officially opened a new Queens outreach office on Jamaica Avenue to serve as a central resource for the community surrounding JFK. Finally, turning to our action at the beginning of the year in elevating the goal of being an employer of choice to one of the agency's top 6 priorities. As part of this decision, we committed to a near-term set of 9 employee-centric initiatives. I'm happy to report that, consistent with our commitment to the board to move forward with speed, today, 45 days after that announcement, we have already implemented 3 of those initiatives, and we are committed to rolling out the rest on a correspondingly rapid timetable. But I want to highlight early results from one particular program. We initiated a new Port Authority employee referral program to enlist the aid of our current employees in identifying talent to bring into the agency. This encourages employees to refer external candidates to fill open positions, and the program is off to a flying start. The agency has received 132 referrals since the program's announcement only 6 weeks ago, and we have already made 7 hires from this program, and we can anticipate very vigorous use of the referrals in the future. We will be further fine-tuning these programs as we see how they work, as well as evaluating and implementing further employee-focused initiatives throughout the year. We are committed to making the Port Authority an employer of choice. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Rick. There's no slow months here, is that what I gather? Excellent job, Rick. Just amazing how you're keeping it all together. I just want to echo a couple of comments. Mr. Marino will be here. We want to salute his service, his 46 years of service. running trains and train stations. He'll be here, I think, in April or May. We want to properly salute him and his sacrifice here at the Port Authority. And Clarell, I just want to know, every commissioner here is proud of your 29 years at the Port Authority. There was a search that we did, and we looked high and low for somebody to lead this agency, and we came back right here to you. And we have full faith you're going to get the job done. Congratulations. Well done. Moving ahead, we always have extraordinary people doing extraordinary things at the port. Whether it's the small things, the big things. Today we're going to recognize 6 Port Authority police officers who at the Newark Liberty saved a life. Big thing. And we think it's important, and we recognize our employees who do the small, the medium, and the large. And when you save a life, it's certainly worthy of coming up here. We want to say thank you to the men and women who wear that uniform and that badge. So if our Superintendent, Ed Setnar. Ed?
Good afternoon, Chairman, Director, Commissioners. On Tuesday, March 12, 2019, at approximately 3 p.m., as Police Officer Evan Majerus was exiting the C1 security exit at Newark Liberty International Airport, TSA alerted him that there was a medical emergency in Lane 3. Police Officer Majerus notified the police desk to request EMS and additional officers. Upon arrival, Police Officer Majerus observed a 73-year-old male lying unresponsive. He further revealed the individual was not breathing and had no pulse. Police Officer Majerus immediately began life-saving actions. Officers Steve Coleglio, George Fajita, Kyle Charrick, Michael Rapici, and Sergeant Anthony Giordano arrived at the scene. The officers worked together, rotating positions to continue providing life-saving measures. The officers were able to restore the individual's breathing and pulse prior to EMS arrival. EMS arrived at the scene and continued emergency treatment. The individual was transported to Newark Beth Israel Hospital, where he's expected to make a complete recovery. At this time, sir, I would like to present to you Sergeant Anthony Giordano, Police Officer Evan Majerus, Steve Coleglio, and Police Officer Michael Rapici for their quick responsive actions in providing life-saving actions to ensure the safety and well-being of the traveling public. We commend the professional, calm actions displayed by these officers and recognize that it reflects greatly upon the Port Authority and the Port Authority Police Department. Sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Thanks. Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
We'll get everybody together. Super. All righty, thank you. We now arrive at the public portion of the meeting where members of the public can discuss and comment Port Authority matters. The public comment period, which will be limited to 30 minutes in total, actually will be a little bit more than that today, provides an opportunity for members of the public to present their views directly to the board, but does not provide for a dialogue. Members of the public wishing to discuss a specific matter with the Port Authority staff are advised to contact our Public Affairs Department. Speakers are asked to comply with the fixed time of 3 minutes per speaker. Our first speaker, Mr. Weissman.
Chairman O'Toole, Director Cotton, Commissioners, good afternoon. Today I would highlight the Georgia's importance to cycle tourism. I will also suggest a model for the agency to partner on sustainable transportation. You have a letter addressed to the New York Governor and the Senate and Assembly speakers. It asks that the George Washington Bridge path expansion be funded as an extension of the Empire State Trail, a 750-mile shared-use path spanning Manhattan to Canada and Buffalo to Albany. In 2017, the legislature appropriated $200 million for the initial phase. This year, another $100 million is being sought to extend it across Long Island. The letter proposes comparable funding to extend it across the George. Now, the trail's principal rationale is to grow state tourism, and loops formed by the George and the Mario Cuomo path will draw thousands of cyclists a day past local food stops. Realizing the George's potential as a linear park would annually draw hundreds of thousands of visitors, spending tens of millions of dollars. And New York City's 800,000 cyclists represent a huge potential market for state tourism, but if they're confined to local streets, they'll never develop the skill and the stamina for longer trips, nor will they invest in any equipment beyond a membership in City Bike. I am confident that use of these funds will further the trail's mission. I'm concerned legislators will decline to fund a project that they consider someone else's responsibility. So I propose that the agency levy a toll on path users but invoice the states. Now, the mechanics are simple. You already have the counter in place, and you have the precedent. In 1931, you charged path users 10 cents. Today, that's $1.60. Now, and if you go in this direction, include the Bayonne and the Goethals. Congestion pricing will induce many commuters to give up cars, and in a transit emergency, the total daily capacity of the three bridges would be in the tens of thousands. Now, if the agency is to work with stakeholders on growing active transportation, it should first be candid about the limitations of its current plans. And if they are found lacking, make the disclosure and offer to partner on a scheme that will generate additional revenue. Thus far, 200 organizations and communities have called for wider paths. In addition, I've circulated this petition to another couple hundred electeds. It increases the political cost for proceeding with the deficient plan, but it also builds consensus for something better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sharon Halpert from Halpert Life Safety.
Thank you all for allowing me time to speak here today. We at Halpert Life Safety Consulting have a unique opportunity to help protect Port Authority from the liability of a terrorist attack. The Port Authority, by virtue of your past and your amazing growth and development of the properties in your purview, is uniquely positioned to take advantage of a new protocol that was developed to protect the life of the building. Safety Act is a way to ensure your building is immune from the general lawsuits that would follow a terrorist attack. When constructing buildings, there's a number of life safety measures that are designed, installed, and inspected. They all play an important but different role in ensuring the life safety of a building. We can break these life safety elements into two primary parts. There's active and passive systems. The active systems, such as sprinklers and alarms. The passive systems, such as fire doors, rated walls, and floors that would contain a fire. These systems support each other in the pursuit of the life safety of any building. Now, if you want to stop a bad guy, you have to think like a bad guy for a minute. And it's no surprise to think that arson cases where the perpetrator either prevented the sprinkler system from performing or impeded its ability to perform as it was designed are going to be the cases where you sustain the greatest loss. The more the bad guy knows about construction, the more they can do to impede the life safety performances and the more damage they can actually cause. More important, the passive fire protection elements become when this happens, because they will be the last line of defense for the exiting occupants as well as the first responders. Halpert Life Safety Protocol has been approved by the Department of Homeland Security for Safety Act protection. It's deployed during the design and construction, and it's effectively built into the bones of the building. It offers protection for the life of your building, and there are an array of other Safety Act offerings that should be included depending on the level of risk and protection that you need for a building. But this is the best way to start construction. As board members, I'm sure that staying apprised of all the changes and opportunities in construction is a daunting task, and this is the reason for me speaking to you today. I want to make you aware of this new opportunity that can protect not only the Port Authority from the liability of a terrorist attack, but also the downstream users such as the design team, the build team, their consultants, and subcontractors. The reality is, deploying this protocol will increase the level of life safety of your building. If there's a fire from nefarious means or from a true accident, your building will be more resilient and your people will be safer. As board members, I assume that you're concerned with liabilities and budgets and so much more. So there are packets prepared for you, and Arnez has them. I look forward to having an opportunity to speak with you, and if you have any questions, please do let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Brady from PATH.
Good afternoon. On March 29, 2012, Bill Baroni stated before this Board of Commissioners that implementation of the Navigant recommendations would leave the average reduction in total compensation per employee will range from 1.8% to 8% at the highest levels. Commissioner Pacino and Steiner both asked questions regarding the percentage employees affected by these reductions and were told by the Chief of Human Capital that 8% is the very highest level of the organization. So that would be the maximum percentage that executives at the very highest levels of the organization could see. It ranges from 1.8% to 8%, not higher than 8%. Mary Lee Hanel went on to correct herself by bringing that up to 12%. That's for the very most senior levels of the organization. Commissioner Steiner asked for a guesstimate on how many employees would be affected at the top rate. Mary Lee Hanel's answer was 30. The committee submits this was factually incorrect. Actually, with the health care cap for only non-represented employees, the inverse is more accurate. The most senior levels of the organization would have the average reduction in total compensation less than all PATH field maintenance and operations supervisors. My reduction was close to about 14%, and I'm one of 80. Commissioner Steiner went on to state, I have always felt that many of our senior people were underpaid. If people are underpaid, in which I think a lot of them could do far better in the private sector, I think that our important employees should be compensated appropriately. Although he stated this in 2012, the field maintenance and operations supervisors of PATH agree with him 100%. At our last town hall meeting, Mr. Cotton stated that the Navigant report missed the fact that supervisors at PATH are the same as supervisors throughout the Port Authority, except they are non-represented. Therefore, with that understanding, a base and framework has been established to alter the wrong that has occurred. The first time I stood up here to speak, it was after Governor of New York. He gave a wonderful speech, and what stood out to me is when he said to the board, how can you operate two different agencies, wage structures, for essentially the same jobs just miles apart? You must rationalize those wages, and when you rationalize them, you must raise them. The issues that Governor Murphy is facing daily with New Jersey Transit didn't appear yesterday, last month, or last year. They were years in the making. Our committee has been sounding the alarm at PATH ever since the Navigant recommendations were implemented. Since 2012, we have written many letters and emails to the Port Authority and PATH leadership, formulated a detailed PowerPoint presentation to show any and all who were interested, met with the Human Capital, Human Resources, the Executive Director, spoke before this board, spoke at town halls. If you could just offer me a little latitude.
Yes, yep.
Spoke before town halls, met with you, Mr. Chairman. Although this has been an exhaustive exercise, we have kept our grievances within the agency and continue to perform our duties to the highest level. The supervisor at PATH understand the gears of governmental agency move slowly. Is it possible, though, to treat our concerns regarding Navigant recommendations, which we have been pleading with Mary Lee Hanel, Pat Foy, Dave Sampson, Bill Baroni, and numerous others for a better part of a decade, with the same exuberance this board showed and treated the Honnold Tunnel Christmas tree? Thank you for your time.
Michael Radzowitz. Michael Radzowitz. Paul, rather, I'm sorry. And I'm not going to make a comment other than saying we've had significant and ongoing conversations, very significant with Michael, the entire group, and we're moving forward. I think we made a lot of progress in the last few months as opposed to going back to 2012 when many of us weren't here. Michael, I appreciate all the comments and the information you've given me and in terms of an education. So we are still moving. We're having weekly conversations around our table to move forward with some proposals that I think you'll appreciate. Paul?
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Radzowitz, and I have over 32 years' experience at PATH. Currently, I'm a supervisor in the PATH Power Department and one of the few qualified high-tension operators. I'm here to question what I read each day on the ENET homepage. Port Authority being the employer of choice, retain, grow, and attract top talent. When I was interviewed for the position of power supervisor, I had to think long and hard about leaving the ranks of the IBEW. At the time, I held one of the highest compensated union positions at PATH. My decision was ultimately swayed to accept the position by my well-respected former superintendent at the time, Frederick Childs. He stated, "There's nothing to worry about. Since I've been at PATH, no one has looked to go back. We take care of our own. You'll be fine." With Mr. Childs' reassurance and having to use the IBEW agreement, which states an employee shall in no event be paid less than 10% above the highest rate by an employee under his supervision, I accepted the promotion, not knowing PATH supervisors would be held in a different standard than our colleagues throughout the agency. In 2012, non-represented employees at PATH were forced to bear the impact of the implication of the Navigant recommendations. My former superintendent left his position because of the reduction in compensation. During his going-away party, Mr. Childs apologized to me and others under his supervision for not having the ability to prevent the negative effects and wished us good luck in retaining top talent and filling future vacancies. To further illustrate our point, last week our committee received an email from the Chief Supervisor, Tim Ryan, who was upset that he was trained as supervisor for over 3 years. This particular supervisor took an equal position, not a promotion, to the supervisor ranks within the Port Authority that's covered by a labor agreement and significantly increased his salary and compensation. I would also add, along with 4 vacant, unable to promote critical supervisor positions, Communications Supervisor Justin Allen will be departing tomorrow. We also have 2 upcoming retirements of supervisors with well over 30 years of employment and another with over 40. How can the Port Authority post on the ENET homepage a standard of integrity and collaboration when the PATH supervisor has been asking upper management for the last 7 years to reverse the negative effects of the Navigant implementation and received nothing but acknowledgement and a recognition of impropriety? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nate Johnson, PATH.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Let me begin by saying congratulations to this board for the appointment of Ms. Clarelle DeGraff as Director and General Manager of PATH. I wish Ms. DeGraff much success and support as she moves PATH forward. I would like to think that my ringing endorsement at one of our previous town hall meetings,
we heard it.
yes, had some effect to that end, although we know that it's not that simple. However, it doesn't stop there, and I urge you to consider the adage that you are only as good as the people that work for you. My name is Nate Johnson, and I am a signal supervisor at PATH with over 36 years of experience within the signal department only, currently holding the position of signal supervisor for the last 15 years. In September of last year, we had signal supervisors retire, and PATH offered qualified candidates the ability to apply for a supervisory position. Due to the implementation of the Navigant recommendations, PATH had to lower those minimum requirements just to attract any candidates. When I applied for the equivalent position years ago, the minimum requirement was at least 10 years of signal experience. November of last year, the Human Resource Department offered promotions to 3 signal maintainers with less than 3 years of PATH signal experience. In addition, the compensation package that was offered to them by the Human Resource Department was completely inaccurate, bordering on the unethical. After speaking with our committee, they were informed it would be a substantial decrease in compensation when you consider the total compensation, health, and welfare package. By the way, we have yet to fill those positions. I, along with most past supervisors who accepted a promotion into the non-represented supervisory positions, had an understanding and good faith that there was a proper exchange of consideration concerning our compensation, and we reasonably relied on that promise. Ever since the implementation of the Navigant recommendation, that trust was broken. In order to hold signal maintainers, there's a letter agreement signed with their union requiring them to stay for 2 years within the signal department before they can consider leaving for other positions within PATH. One of the vacant positions within the supervisory ranks happens to be a signal trainer. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey spent over $300 million for our new signal system, and we are mandated by the FRA to properly train signal maintainers. We have desperately made attempts to address the losses suffered due to the Navigant. To the present Chief of Human Capital, Mary Lee Hamill, just bear with me, previous executive directors and chairman to no avail. Unless we are able to retain the most qualified and skilled labor within the supervisory ranks, the Port Authority would ultimately impact our customer service efforts. And we believe the board needs to be aware of this situation. I thank you for the time.
Thank you. William Wasawati? William?
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Wasawati, and I have over 32 years at PATH. I started as a trackman and worked my way up through the ranks to Chief Maintenance Supervisor within the track department. I supervise 162 PATH employees working under 4 different collective bargaining agreements. I experienced a lot in my 32 years career: floods, fires, derailments, blizzards, hurricanes, and of course, Superstorm Sandy. I've experienced fatalities at PATH, both the riding public and unfortunately co-workers that were also dear friends of me. I also unfortunately experienced 2 terrorist attacks, and I am currently a member of the World Trade Center Health Registry for the study and treatment related to my exposure at Ground Zero. My fellow PATH supervisors and I take great pride in our work at PATH, which brings me here today to discuss the Navigant report effects on specifically PATH supervision. You're probably tired about hearing about the Navigant report. I know I am. I'm also tired of living in the past 7 years, but here I am. As we all know, healthcare costs are rising throughout the country, and it's a serious problem that needs serious attention. That being said, we understand the Navigant recommendations, which requires employee contributions. What I can't understand is the disparity among the Port Authority supervisors. Currently, upper management and every other employee who falls under collective bargaining agreements pays a significantly smaller percentage of their base salary towards health care. I stand here today to let you know my health is just as important to me as every other Port Authority employee. Health is important to them. In fact, by working in the track department for 32 years, I probably have subjected myself to more damage than the average Port Authority employee. I'm not looking for sympathy. I am proud to have dedicated my working career to PATH. My only request is for this board to treat me as my fellow PATH supervisors the same way you treated us before the Navigant. Mr. Cotton, Mr. O'Toole, the ball is in your court. Please reverse the Navigant effects, the negative effects on Navigant on PATH supervisors, not only for the present PATH supervisors, but also for the future supervisors. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, William. Greg Reich? Greg? And James Garrison will be next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Greg Reich. I've been with the Port Authority for 14 years, and I currently hold the title of Assistant Train Master. When I initially embarked upon my career at the Port Authority, it was a commonly held belief that this was an excellent agency with opportunities for advancement, fair benefits, and retirement provisions. Through economic downturn and in response to the Navigant report, the agency has implemented a number of austerity measures with respect to compensation and benefits. However, it appears that these austerity measures have been unequally applied, particularly with respect to retiree health benefits. For instance, under the current agreement that has been offered to every supervisor throughout the agency, a Port Authority supervisor with 10 to 15 years of service as of August 1st, 2018, shall be required to make a 2% contribution to retirement health benefits, while an equivalent level supervisor at PATH must have 20 to 25 years of service as of the date July 8th, 2012, for equivalent contribution requirements. Notwithstanding the remarkable fortuitousness whereby the seemingly arbitrary date of July 8, 2012 appears to coincide closely, and by closely I mean a matter of 3 days, with the service date of the Port Authority Chief of Human Capital. Mr. Chairman, you stated at the Town Hall meeting that all Port Authority supervisors should pay the same towards their benefits. Why does there exist a separate standard? What is the significance of the vesting dates, and who determines them? And what has occasioned the Port Authority's hostility towards PATH supervisors, and what can be done to impress upon the senior administration the urgency with which this hostile and unequal treatment needs to be rectified? Mr. Chairman, the committee eagerly awaits your response to these questions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. James Garrison? James Cashman will be next.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Garrison. What is meant by normalized performance distribution? A performance rating system where ratings must conform to roughly bell-shaped curve to reflect the relative performance among employees. This system requires a certain number of employees to be rated in each performance category, with the most being rated in the middle or strong performance and fewer at the high and lower ends. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Garrison. I have over 30 years of experience within PATH. I have held numerous positions throughout PATH and have risen through the ranks with over 19 years on the trainmaster's desk. For those who do not know, in this capacity, I supervise the operation of the railroad and represent the superintendent in his absence. By rising through the ranks, I have shown my dedication and commitment to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and after the Navigant recommendations, I, along with my coworkers in the supervisory ranks, only within PATH, are subject to the ERAMP performance ratings. The performance ratings has a range from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. The bell curve dictates a majority of the rankings be a median 3. Think about that. A majority of PATH supervisors will be ranked a 3 by design. Approximately 80 supervisors in the largest line department within the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. These are folks who have been promoted up through the ranks, who have attained the critical institutional, and I might add, invaluable knowledge. The men and women working in a 24/7 environment responding to all emergencies and all kinds of conditions, the same folks that execute your directives. And to add insult to injury, the performance award in 2019 for 3 is less than every contractual increase you approved and every contract you have proposed. I know I only have 3 minutes, but I need to reiterate. Every employee who falls under a collective bargain agreement will receive a higher increase than the average PATH supervisor. Why? Because we fall outside the collective bargaining process. This is our reward. How does HR compare my performance to a supervisor in a completely different field? They can't, so they exert forced distribution of these rankings. In the last few years, we have had supervisors that were given a ranking of 5, only to have it reduced to a 3. This forced distribution has been occurring every year this broken plan was implemented. In fact, both you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Cotton, were at the town hall meeting at PATH where Mary Lee Hanel specifically stated there will be no forced distribution this year, and there hasn't been in 2 years. PATH supervisors would love it if one of those you could ask her again, because our committee has information this is in fact untrue. So I finish with asking the most basic question. If a supervisor in the PA is the same as the supervisor at PATH, then why can't we be compensated the same? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. James Cashman? Next one is Henry Pacheco.
Good afternoon. My name is James Cashman. I'm a supervisor at PATH in the Power Department, and I have over 30 years' experience. I'm here to let the board know that PATH supervisors have been dealing with an HR department who not only doesn't understand our unique placement within the agency, but shows a complete disregard for our concerns. Either HR has deliberately misinformed potential candidates and current PATH supervisors, or they really have no clue as to our compensation. As a PATH supervisor who is governed by the railroad and is a non-represented employee, leaves us in a position where we cannot participate in Port Authority employment opportunities or transfer throughout the agency without resigning from PATH. This is the reason the implementation of the Navigant recommendations were detrimental to specifically PATH and only PATH supervisors. In 2012, the PATH system transported 250,000 daily riders. Today, we're averaging up more. We can only imagine with the continued growth in Harrison, Journal Square, downtown Jersey City, and Newark, along with the economic growth in the region, what our ridership will look like in 5 years. We understand you folks with upper management lead. We respect that. But you, along with upper management, must at least understand it is the PATH supervisors who execute that. Historically, there has been a compact built on trust, and since 2012, that trust is broken. The chairman and the executive director have been receptive to our situation by fielding our questions at the town halls, delegating communication through staff, and participating in our PowerPoint late last summer. The executive director requested that we continue the dialogue and help create a framework to have in place for when the PATH collective bargaining agreements are settled. It has been frustrating to our committee that the HR department has not engaged us for months specifically about that framework, nor have they attempted to mitigate some issues that fall outside of the concerns of collective bargaining that we've all discussed. The issues we have laid out are clear. Everyone here and everyone we have spoken to agrees this needs to be repaired. We need the board to help restore the trust and restore our compact so we can refocus on operations and maintenance, capital projects, Sandy rehabilitation, and to return to a more harmonious working atmosphere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cashman. Henry Pacheco. Next one is Maximina Santana.
Good afternoon. My name is Henry Pacheco, and I'm a worker. I'm a member of United Here Local 100 at JFK Airport for OTG Management. I want to thank the Port Authority for the minimum wage increase for airport workers, including airline catering workers. Through this wage increase, I've been able to save and help build a roof for my mother in Puerto Rico, who is still recovering from Hurricane Maria. Although the wage increase is a great victory, we need to continue to improve airport jobs and make them quality jobs. That begins with guaranteeing that all airport workers and airline catering workers have health insurance coverage. Currently, I do not have the company's health insurance because it's too expensive. For example, I just recently had a knee injury, and my employer hasn't done anything to cover me with my injury. Members at OTG pay $72.50 per week for health insurance. This comes out to $290 a month for single coverage. This is an absurd amount, considering that we continue to make minimum wage. That's why I'm here today on behalf of OTG airport workers in New York and New Jersey to tell our employer that the time is now to guarantee quality and affordable insurance, health insurance, for all airport workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maximina Santana. Followed by John Rebernick.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Maximina Müller.
My name is Maximina Müller.
Trabajo en Sky Chef en Cool Food por 2 años.
I work at Sky Chef, and I've been working for 2 years and do the food, cold foods for the.
Soy parte de la unión here.
I'm part of the union.
Y muchísimas gracias a las autoridades por su liderazgo y por el aumento salarial.
Thank you very much to the Port Authority for the leadership and guidance.
Gracias a su aumento salarial mi vida puede cambiar, puedo ayudar a mi familia y planificar unas mejores vacaciones.
Thank you for the increase in the salary. Now I'm happy and I'm able to travel and save money and be with my family.
Planificar mejores vacaciones.
And
Planification, mejores vacaciones.
And vacations, yes. Sorry.
Pero nosotros tenemos un problema en SkyChet.
But we have a problem with the health insurance at SkyChef.
SkyChet tiene un muy mal seguro médico. Nosotros necesitamos un mejor seguro médico.
SkyChef has insurance that is not that good, and we need a better insurance.
Porque si los empleados no tienen un buen seguro médico, no pueden tener una mejor labor, un mejor desenvolvimiento, no pueden prevenir enfermedades.
Because if we have a better insurance, we could have a better labor work and stop from getting any sickness in the future and do a more performance at work.
El seguro médico de SkyChef es muy caro, no es accesible para la mayoría de los empleados, por eso muchos empleados no lo tienen.
The SkyChef insurance is too expensive, and not too many of the employees have able to afford it, and not many has them.
Y entiendo que es muy difícil trabajar sin seguro médico porque si la persona está enferma no puede tener un mayor desarrollo.
And it's hard to not have medical insurance because you cannot work and protect yourself from getting sick and be able to go to work.
Porque si SkyChef es que prepara la comida trabaja para las compañías quizá más ricas del mundo como Delta y América, debe de proporcionar a sus empleados un mejor seguro médico para que sus empleados puedan tener un mayor rendimiento.
SkyChef works for these major billionaires airlines, and they should be able to provide a better insurance for them because they are the ones who's giving them work.
Muchísimas gracias nuevamente por su salario.
Thank you so much for increasing the minimum salary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you very much. John?
Hi, my name is John Rubernick. I'm a bartender at Proof Oasis, which is at Newark Airport Terminal C. I've been at the airport for 7 years, last 4.5 with OTG. First, I want to thank you for the leadership in passing the new airport minimum wage. I'm sure you know it makes a big difference to me and my coworkers, many who are struggling to get by. But despite the victory, our health insurance at OTG is a huge problem for us. I have been speaking to many of my coworkers, and there's just horror stories left and right. Some of them just can't find doctors because they won't accept our insurance. Others are complaining that a dental cleaning, which is preventive care, costs $160. Recently, a person told me that a rescue inhaler, which used to cost $4 out of their pocket, is now costing $75. Coverage no longer even covers birth control. For me, the main problem is just the expense of the insurance. Last year, I paid over $6,000 in premiums with an additional $9,000 out of my pocket for a total of $15,000 insurance and medical expenses. And this year, it's gone up to $145 a week, which is $7,500 a year. We just can't continue to absorb these payments with the fact that coverage is going down. My son has had several foot surgeries and leg problems. The doctor encourages him to go to physical therapy 3 times a week. But at $45 per visit, we just can't afford that. We've cut down the amount of visits and just hope that it doesn't have any lasting consequences on his health. To pay $15,000 and to still have to cut corners is unsustainable for my family. And for workers to make less than I do, I know they can't afford it. We appreciate the progress that you've made on wages, but OTG's health insurance is hurting us, and we need to do better. We hope you'll support us as we fight for decent, accessible health insurance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Murray Bowden?
We live in a country that's vastly different than it was a few years ago. Brexit, storms in the Midwest, Europe, Boeing. The problems have changed enormously. Used to buy a yellow cab and $1 million. The industry collapsed. Uber and Lyft changed everything. One of the things that would be indicative of the bus terminal that some years ago you were going to replace, and you need to acknowledge that buses, commuter buses, will no longer come to New York City when the Gateway Tunnel is complete. They'll go to Secaucus. You need to make that statement now so people can plan ahead. When Governor Cuomo had somebody look at the L train tunnel, he changed the ballgame. He essentially said, why are we doing things the same way we did them 100 years ago or 50 years ago? We have new technologies. Nobody had a smartphone 10 years ago. Brand new. Computers are out. People don't use computers anymore. You need to be proactive, you need to be flexible, you need to think differently. And for my generation, it's extremely difficult. We can't give up the power to my grandchildren. I'm weird, I think differently, I'm wired differently, I'm not wired the way the rest of you are. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm a weird person. There's a bell curve. Most people are within that 6 sigma. I'm out there 9 sigma. My time's up. I'm losing my mind slowly. I can't remember stuff. I forgot a lot of stuff. And so I have to apologize a lot of times for things that mistakes I've made and didn't realize I did it. I've asked your enormously talented traffic engineer to make some changes. He and the traffic engineer, Director of Maintenance at New Jersey Transit are the 2 best traffic engineers I have ever met in my lifetime. He's great, but nothing happened. He knows what has to be done, but for whatever reason, it didn't get done. Somehow you need to begin to make changes that say to people, we want to give you what you need. People are not paying attention anymore. The light turns green, nobody moves because people are texting even though it's against the law. Well, we have to recognize reality. Reality is the world changed, and we have to accommodate the way people think and not the way they're supposed to think. I'm supposed to behave myself and sit down. I had no intention of doing that. None whatsoever. You want to carry me out of here? I've been carried out before. We live in a changing world. We need to make changes, and we need to make them rapidly. Don't wait too long. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Charlene Tellerico?
Before I begin to speak, let me just make it perfectly clear that there's no one in this room that understands what a Port Authority police officer risks every day. Okay? And no one that cares about them more. With that being said, good afternoon. Since before December 28th of 2012, when I wrote my first letter to former Executive Director Foy regarding the Lincoln Tunnel abuse, I have continuously followed Port Authority policy and protocols in an effort to receive assistance, only to be repeatedly ignored and denied. After Diane Eller, the former general manager of the Lincoln Tunnel, now the director of TB&T, assaulted and physically injured me, I immediately went downstairs and reported it to the Lincoln Tunnel commanding officer, Captain Emilio Gonzalez, now the chief of department. Due to the lack of assistance and the actions of police personnel after I was assaulted and injured, I requested to submit civilian complaints. only to be ignored and denied time after time by the Inspector General's office. In November of 2017, after Chief Billich stepped in, over a year after I was assaulted and injured, I was finally allowed to submit civilian complaints. Let me rephrase. I was led to believe I submitted civilian complaints. After numerous requests for status updates to the Inspector General's office, which were ignored, I submitted Freedom of Information requests for documentations and copies of my complaints. After numerous emails between myself and the Freedom of Information officer, or Mr. Marinko, I think is his name, I finally received 2 Port Authority civilian complaint forms PA 3962. They were total fabrications. One had a CCC number 17-00051, and the other one was just recently created, complaint number CCC 19-005. I'm a little off track, sorry. To be blunt, it was a sham. My complaints were ignored and never investigated. I have now submitted civilian complaints against the captain, now Chief, Emilio Gonzalez, Lieutenant DiMartino, Sergeant Kelleher, and Police Officer Harrington regarding their actions on August 4th, 2016, when I was assaulted and physically injured by Diane Eller, after begging to do so for years. Inspector General Nestor just emailed me the signed civilian complaint form that I submitted in reference to the captain, now Chief Gonzalez. Lieutenant McGray did the same regarding the other officers. I'm very concerned that the Inspector General's office total disregard for the truth, their negligence, and previous refusals, I will be told that the matter is too old and no one will be held accountable. If so, this would be just one more example of the cover-up done in an effort to protect Diane Eller and others. Due to the Inspector General's office detectives' previous actions, which include lying to a prosecutor, the fake civilian complaints, and refusing to assist me prior to my being assaulted by Diane Eller and after I was assaulted by Diane Eller, I have little faith that these complaints will be investigated honestly. Although, since Chairman O'Toole, Executive Director Cotton, and Deborah Torres are on a mission to bring ethics and integrity to the Port Authority, I'm hoping I'm wrong, and that the complaints are investigated honestly, and those who do wrong will be held accountable. Call me the eternal optimist, but I can't not believe in this agency that my Paulie lost his life for.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the voting of items for the board's consideration. Each of the respective committee chairs will provide a brief report prior to the matter being considered. As Chair of the Committee on Operations, I now request a vote on an item that authorizes a new lease with the Honey Bee Foods Corporation for the operation of the Jolly Bee restaurant on the plaza level of the Journal Square Transportation Center for a 10-year term at the aggregate rental of approximately $3 million. Prior to making a motion, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Motion, please. Second. Roll call, please.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Items approved. Vice Chair Linford, as Chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, will now provide his report on 2 items before the board for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I will now report on an item under the committee's purview, which was presented by our Director of Aviation at the committee meeting earlier today. The item authorizes projects to modernize and upgrade 3 of the electrical substations at John F. Kennedy International Airport and plan for the replacement of the 4th substation at an aggregate amount of $182.5 million. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger? Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
As the votes are in order, the item is approved. The next item would modify a prior board authorization for a new lease agreement with EWR Conrack LLC for a consolidated rental car and public parking facility. Specifically, the previously authorized date for commercial closing of March 31st, 2019 would be extended to September 30th, 2019. In addition, this item would authorize the expenditure of $4 million in advance of the commercial closing for early action work for the Port Authority's public parking facility. Prior to making a motion on this item, I would ask the corporate secretary to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I will now request a motion on this item.
Move it. Second.
Thank you very much. I will now request the corporate secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
As the votes are in order, the item is approved, and I return to Chairman O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Commissioner Bagger, as Chair of the Committee on Finance, will now provide his report on an item before the board for consideration.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to recommend an item that was presented to the Finance Committee earlier today by our treasurer. This item authorizes an underwriting syndicate composed of senior managers, co-managers, and selling group members to provide underwriting services for the issuance of Port Authority debt obligations to support the ongoing capital markets program and the refunding of outstanding debt obligations. This would be for a 3-year period with 2 one-year renewal options. Ask the corporate secretary if we have any recusals on this item.
No recusals.
Any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion? Second?
Second.
We have a roll call, please.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
And the votes are in order, so that item is approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bagger. Commissioner McCabe, as Chair of the Audit Committee, will now provide his report on an item before the board for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to its authority under the bylaws and its charter, members of the Audit Committee have reviewed and approved the Port Authority's financial statements and appended notes for the year ended December 31st, 2018. As such, the committee recommends to the board that the financial statements be included in the Port Authority's, the Port Authority's comprehensive annual financial report and other publications as appropriate. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the corporate secretary to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on the item? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Can I have a second on the motion?
Second.
I now request the corporate secretary to call for roll call voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bagger? Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz? Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
As the votes are in order, the items are approved. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner McCabe. There being no further business, I have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Here a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, all.